Things are heating up as we approach the end of Core 1 of Gundam Witch from Mercury, and Delling has always had a pretty big target painted on his back because, obviously, easily one of the biggest people if you take out, other people will end up massively jumping in status and power. But I think after episode 10, the target is more or less like, if he avoids death, that will be more shocking than if he dies at this point, because not only is his and Mio's relationship kind of getting a lot more neutral, you actually feel like he's proud of her, she's listening to him, they're both kind of learning things from each other. It's the perfect opportunity to crush a growing father-daughter relationship and bring out the pain. But most importantly, everything about this core has been establishing and setting up for what's to come in the next core and beyond, potentially. And the fact of the matter is, it feels like a big death is how they're going to end this core. And when we kick back in, when we get to the spring season of next year, these characters aren't going to be able to go back to the life that they've come to expect here. And that's pretty exciting, if not a little worrying, because characters like Soletta are bound to be heartbroken sooner rather than later. Now, I do got a full live reaction available on the Patreon if you're interested in watching, of course, so check that out if you so wish. But this episode, I really liked. These are the types of episodes that are basically considered setup episodes, and there's been a good handful in this core, but I love the fact that I can look at the time bar and say, holy shit, 10 minutes has passed, and I'm convinced it's been less than 5, even though there's not a shit ton of action, or there's not a shit ton of drama at any particular moment. Really, the first half of this episode is just watching the Gundam company, basically, they're trying to make medical equipment, like that's their plan. And we're seeing just how life-changing a lot of this stuff could be. Just the fact that these legs are actually, for someone as clumsy as Soletta at any given moment, she was operating those almost immediately, and just imagining people who never thought they'd be able to walk again, having that type of life-changing tech, you understand the purpose, but no matter what's made, I mean, you can even look at our own world. Things that are designed for medical purposes, they always get used for war sooner rather than later. To see these kids have such hope in their eyes as they're trying to change the world for the better, as then we see the other factions both on student sides, as with Shadik and his father, to just pure on adult sabotage planning, assassinations, and all of the in-between. It's pretty crazy stuff. And I think one of the biggest surprises for me in this episode was Nika, I believe her name is, because you can really tell she's not like Shadik in the way that Shadik's someone who I firmly believes cares for Miorine, but the issue is that he also cares about getting where he thinks he needs to go, and if he has to go down with the ship in order to make his adoptive father proud and do what he thinks is right, then he'll do so. Where Nika seems like someone who's kind of being pulled along and is doing things that is about to cost Mio her father's life. But when you really look at her frowns to her happiness to how like it felt like she wanted the keychain that Soletta had, it really feels like she's a character who wants the best for them, but has currently been dragged along against her will sort of a thing. So that has me interested to see where her character could go, just to see where different perspectives are about to head, because we end in a pretty, I would say, heartbreaking way. It's not to say Mio did anything horrible, like she's just caught up in her work and she basically has her head in the clouds in a way. She's so focused she doesn't see that she's hurting or she's doing things that are hurtful to her. She looks at it as, well, this girl is literally swamped with work. I'm going to hire gardeners so that they can look after the greenhouse. Nothing evil or malicious there in terms of her intentions, but for someone like Soletta, this was her soon-to-be wife, right? Someone who she's actually really growing to care for, and the fact that she took something away that meant something to both of them, it hurts her. And the fact that she drops those keychains in that way. Is their relationship ruined? No, but we're kind of in this moment where, you know, we've already started putting cracks in Soletta's psyche. I think the first time she realized that Prospero lied to her was the big moment. Yes, she seemingly got over it, but as I mentioned in the review when that happened, I mean, the more cracks that you have, you can patch a crack all you want, but the crack and the damage is there, and eventually shit's gonna shatter. And do I expect it to completely shatter by the end of this core? No, but I expect a few more cracks along the way before we kick back into spring with this show. And I'm really, really interested to see where Guel's gonna go, because I mean, I mentioned it in the previous review, how we had that 6v6, it was incredible, but I think like with many, we were expecting Guel to be a part of it, and he wasn't. It's a little disappointing on one hand, but with where he's currently at the end of the episode, especially if you watch after the credits there's about an extra minute and a half, give or take, and there is guns drawn. There's basically, they're floating around, they seemingly are defenseless, and if there's ever been a moment to give him a moment to pop back in a suit of some sort, whether a Gundam or not, this is the moment to give him like his redemption sort of a thing. And Bob, as they're calling him, I mean, I'm hoping that he gets a moment either in next episode or the one after, because there's a real good possibility there. And if not, I mean, well, better be getting some damn spotlight in core too, because this is a character who went from the shit list of just being an absolute douchebag, seemingly, to being a character who honestly has some of my biggest interests as it stands. Like, I've seen a lot of people, whether different review sites or just random comments online saying, like, this is too slow, like, not enough's happening, but this is all about the setup, getting us established with these characters, and I'm loving learning about them first and foremost, seeing how innocent a lot of them are, and those who appear innocent but are honestly manipulating things more than most, such as Shadeep, right? I mean, I love seeing what they're doing and how there is so many different sections of the adult storyline here that are literally trying to outplay and gain more shares than anyone else, as then you also have so many of these different kids trying to either A, just have a peaceful life, revolutionize tech, to then being swept into this crazy sabotage. I mean, an all-out war is all but given at some point, and I like getting to establish in this way first, because you don't get to see this type of storytelling in Gundam a lot, and I think that's what makes it so fresh, alongside just everything about it visually being pretty distinct. Like, if you actually take a step back and look at the number of character designs, whether body weights, heights, skin tones, everything, like, it just feels like a world that feels not just like, oh, here's one type of character design plastered all over the place. Like, this actually feels like Earthians, Spacians, and just so many different varieties. And I think they're doing a great job at really establishing this as a complex world, and as we see at any given moment. Like, this episode, they focus in on a couple being like, if that Mercury girl didn't come here, everything would still be fine. But you can actually look at a lot of the general background characters, even when our characters are front and center, and you can see side eyes, you can see glares, and people are pissed. People are actually quite worried, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do here, because it's honestly been a great season. This has actually been one of my favorite shows, not only to watch but also cover in videos, and I'm really excited to see where the last stretch of Core 1 will go, and most importantly where Core 2 will go, and hopefully that will only be half of the show, because I still am crossing my fingers that this will be the typical 50 episode Gundam run that Gundam television series anyway is known for, so fingers crossed. But either way, I'll leave another episode of Gundam with a smile on my face, worry in my heart, but just the future of the show, it's never looked brighter in my opinion. But I'll pass the torch over to everyone. What did you think of this kind of setup, slower episode that really gets the momentum moving? Character relationships are flourishing and crumbling just as fast as they're being built up, so do let me know what you're feeling, favorite character, all that kind of fun stuff down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. And like I mentioned, there's a full live reaction available on my Patreon, so do consider that if you want, and while you're there, you also get video shoutouts like a few are about to get here. So we got Patrick Harris, Gwoldy8, and do forgive me, I'm going to butcher this, Buwanake Monica Lazuria. Thank you, and I'll see you next time, everyone.